Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 35 of the Memorial Memo KSR's Kentucky Women's Basketball Podcast. Today, I'm in the Joe Kraft Center because I want to be joined by none other than Taylor Soule, former Virginia Tech Hokie, playing under Kenny Brooks for one season there. And now she's a program assistant at Kentucky, was four-time All-ACC, had a really good career at Boston College before she went to Virginia Tech. Of course, spent some time in the WNBA, just great player, now program assistant at UK. We'll talk to her, get to know more about her story, her stories with Kenny, Georgia Amore, and what her role is going to be at Kentucky, and, a little bit of what this Kentucky team looks like. So stay tuned. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm joined by none other than Taylor Soule, former Virginia Tech Hokie, was a star there, was a star in 5 years in the ACC, and, of course, coming now to Kentucky as a program assistant, four-time All-ACC. You were a big part of that Virginia Tech team that went to that Final Four, spent some time in the WNBA. Like I said, you were brought on as a program assistant, so I guess just kind of explain what that role means, and then, how did you end up getting it?
Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, of course.
Second of all, I'm extremely grateful to be in Lexington. First time kind of in the city, and then just with the university, and with the team, kind of being a program assistant, it's like being a coach, but a little bit less. And so there are things I can and can't do, but definitely interact with the players, whether it be, assisting in a drill, rebounding, as the season progresses, maybe a little bit of clipping up film, things like that. And also because, like you said, I have had the chance to play professional basketball, a little bit of my role also involves, helping them transition, have conversations on, hey, I'm thinking about, wanting to play overseas. What does that kind of look like for me? So different types of things I can do, but I'm extremely grateful to be here.
How much thought have you given into coaching in the future? Like obviously you're program assistant Taylor Soule right now, but what about assistant head coach or head coach Taylor Soule? Is there that kind of possibility down the road?
Yeah, there's definitely that, desire for me. I think what I love so much about the game of basketball is not just the playing side of it, but I love, seeing student athletes learn, apply, try, maybe fail, get back up. I love team camaraderie, all that sort of stuff. And so I think God's maybe given me some passion when it comes to basketball, some gifts, but I think, definitely this is a great opportunity for me to see, hey, do I really want to do this? And so far, we're off to a good start.
Now, obviously, we only really know Coach Brooks from either his media appearances or watching him on the sideline. So I wanted to ask you, because one, you played for him, now you're kind of coaching with him. You've been Blacksburg and Lexington, just outside of basketball, right? Mm-hmm. Forget the X's and O's, all that crap, What's Kenny like just as a person, as a guy?
Yeah, just as a guy, he's a good guy. He is genuine, he's honest, and he's somebody that I've been able to, as I've kind of grown up a little bit, I've respected him more and more because I started to understand, some of the philosophies that he might talk about on the basketball court translate directly to myself now being a young adult. And so it's kind of been enjoyable to be around him for a second time, but he's just a character. He's a good guy.
Going back to when you played for him at Virginia Tech, that recruitment process when he was trying to get you to come, what ultimately led you to choose to play for
him? Well, if you can't beat him, you join him. And so I never really got the chance to do that. But all jokes aside, honestly, I had just seen the upward trend of not only player development, but the success of his team and program. And also, like, once you play against some head coaches after a while, you might have some after-game conversations. So we always had mutual respect for one another. And so, I always kind of wanted to continue playing in the ACC. And so the opportunity just lined up perfectly. And so the rest is kind of history, but it worked out well.
It's interesting to me you talked about that upward trend and the player development because, at that time when he was bringing you in, he hadn't gone to a Final Four yet. Mm-hmm. He hadn't won the ACC championship yet. It's not like he could point at that title in the trophy case and be like, hey, look, come here, you're going to do that. Mm-hmm. So was it that upward trend kind of, oh, look, he can really develop these players, were those the kinds of things that he sold you on when recruiting you?
Yeah, I think also, like, for my own self, I knew that going from my senior year to having the opportunity to play a fifth year, the next question is, like, what I want to do in life. And so I knew I wanted to play professional basketball. And so, again, it's in sort of conversations. Maybe he didn't have an ACC trophy to look at, but you can understand, you can hear, you can believe what a coach has to say. And then, they have the work behind it. And so, I mean, I've heard him, I've seen him and the work that he does, and then being able to actually play underneath him and see the work from the words that he was saying all line up, kind of, help me stay in house, succeed. and again go forward from there.
It was also around that time when the sport of women's basketball really started kind of explode.
Yes.
Of course, you and that Virginia Tech team are part of that Final Four. You know, a lot of great teams, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, all that. Sorry to remind you about Angel Reese and LSU. It's just kind of the way it goes.
That's all right.
But at least, you were a part of that Final Four. I bring that
Yes.
up, not to rub it in your face,
No,
but
it's
to
all
say congratulations for getting there, but also just what was it like to be a part, not only to see that kind of rise in women's basketball, but to be a part of it, really?
Mm-hmm. I think while it was, first of all, thank you. I think when it was happening, it's like you don't realize something so grand is happening until you kind of step away from it. And so after, the season was done, getting to look back and to see the numbers, like statistically, how many people were tuning into the game. Even my family and friends who maybe, they follow my basketball, but now they know about other teams. They're following like different players from college to the pros. And so to be a part of that, not only as a player, but now even like on the coaching side, it's super cool just to see people's genuine interest in the game that I've grown to love, and now see other people love it as well.
What was it like to be a part of that Final Four run, by the way? Because, it was the first time in school history Virginia Tech made it that far.
Yeah, it was crazy because, like, that was my 5th time being in college, trying to make it to the tournament. And you work hard, and until you do it and you're trying, you're like, dang, like, it really does take a lot of work. And so to be there, be with the group I was, to have the success we were having, it was just – Coach Brooks always said, play hard. He said, do your job and do it well. And so I was on a team where everybody understood what their job was. We were doing it well. And so we were just having fun and playing basketball. Can't ask for anything more than that.
From your experience, what does it take to get to a Final Four? Because there's always good teams and even great teams, but I feel like there's a difference between a good or a great team and a Final Four caliber team.
Yeah, I think it takes a couple things. I think it takes a lot of selflessness. I think it takes a lot of discipline. I think it takes like a head coach and the coaching staff to have an idea in mind about how they want to run things, and then it takes players and coaches that trust each other. Again, it goes back to do your job and do it well. So we trusted in Coach Brooks, Coach Rag, Coach Hicks, everybody in their plan. Now it's our job as players to execute that. And so I think especially that year, but for anybody, trying to find success, it's you got to, as a group, have a common goal and then everybody do their job to get there.
How much does a difference does it make to have that sort of, that Kenny Brooks culture? First of all, what is that Kenny Brooks culture like? Because we hear about it. When I talk to people around the program, that's one of the big things. Or you talk to recruits and they're like, love the culture. Such a big thing around here. What is that culture really like, and how much of a difference does it make to have that kind of culture on your team?
Mm-hmm. I think the type of culture, that Kenny Brooks culture, is people playing basketball the right way and respecting the game. I think it's a culture where you get the most out of each other and you get the most out of what you give. And so it's always honest. And again, like I said, I think what I've loved so much about being around that staff is it's not just basketball. Like, you might think it's just basketball, but it's going to translate anywhere else in life. I think that's a huge thing. Is I'm just coming off an injury, and so you realize sometimes like basketball might not always be there for you, but the advice that this staff gives the players, it can translate whether they're on the floor or off the court.
Now, I know you've only been around for a few weeks, but speaking of culture, it really seems like this Kentucky team really gets along, right?
Yeah, they enjoy each other. They're a good group of girls. Again, like, they celebrate each other's successes. Even when there's new pieces coming in, there's girls that understand, what it takes to play in the SEC, what it's like playing under Coach Brooks. And I've only been around them for maybe a month or so, but they got great energy. They work hard, so they're definitely fun to be around.
And, I was just curious because, like I said, you've only been around for so long. So I was wondering, I'm not going to ask you, I'm not going to put too much pressure on you, but what are your quick, raw sort of first impressions of what this team looks like?
I think we're going to be able to shoot the ball really well. Let me knock on wood, make sure that happens. But I really do think offensively, as the girls start to understand each other a little bit more, that they're going to be really fun to watch. I think they're going to push the ball. I think we're going to rebound really well. I think we're going to get out in transition and, again, just be able to shoot lights out. So I'm really excited to see that.
And I wanted to ask about Tony Morgan specifically because you've had the opportunity to play with some really great point guards, Georgia Amore, for example. Now, Tony's obviously a very different player than Georgia and some of those other guards. So I wanted to ask you, how would you describe Tony's game, just kind of being around her for, about a month or so?
Yeah, I just got done actually watching a workout of hers, and I think it's her first step. And just she has like a cadence about her that's Okay, you can either like play basketball, or you can be like a hooper. And Toni Morgan
Okay.
is a hooper. Like she just has a flow about her, and she has an amazing touch, whether it be from the 3-point line to getting to the basket. I mean, as a player that could play with her, it's what you want. And for someone that you're coaching, it's great. She loves to soak up new information, try different things, but that kid is explosive for sure.
From a little I've seen, it looks like her shots really improved too. Like it looks really smooth. I mean, obviously it's practice and it's a little bit different, but like shots are going in.
Shots are going in. She's getting more confident as things go on. And again, like she wants to work hard. She wants to learn. She's in an environment where she's gonna, get new knowledge, and so it's a win-win for everybody.
Now, Kenny is obviously, I think it's fair to say, very intentional in the things he does. There's no wasted breath, no wasted motion. Do you think that's something that's kind of unique to Kenny, or do you think that's something that maybe separates him from other coaches?
I think every coach, has their own, style, their own personality outside of just being a coach, and then obviously like how they coach the game. What I've liked and what I've seen on the coaching side with him is he just allows players. He'll give you information, but then he'll allow players the time to, hey, what did I do wrong? So it's not always a coach in my ear. Because when you're playing at an LSU, when you're playing at an Oklahoma, like you might not always be able to hear your head coach. And so what has he been telling me before, and how can I now, apply that for myself? So I think that might be a little bit unique to him. Again, there's been success with how the players have handled it, so it's going pretty well so far.
And speaking of intentionality, you can see how much he puts into player development, kind of like we hit on earlier. I think of Georgia Amore and Claire Strack, two players in particular who really blossomed kind of in the stars under Kenny. Just you see it in practice. It really is kind of all hands on deck when it comes to player development, isn't it?
Yes, it definitely is. And I think player development can either be on court, it can be in the film room, it can be, relationship building, understanding your players, what they might need one day or another, like what buttons to push to get the best out of them. And again, I think every head coach has different ways of doing things, but I think Coach Brooks is just really good at being able to read players and get the most out of them.
I think of like when you're in the practice gym, and I saw they did it with Claire Strack a lot last year. I'm sure they're still doing it, but I saw it with Toni Morgan this year. It was like all the practice players and like three of the coaches going against her, like 1 against 6, and it's like, Toni, like, are you okay? But I mean, that's gonna make her really, even better than she is when the season rolls around. I imagine.
The preparation is great, and again, I've been blessed enough to be able to play professional basketball, and it's like as pro as it can be in a collegiate setting, whether it's people rebounding, people making good passes, people playing respectful defense, having a coach watch you. Like it's like anything else. It's awesome.
In my brief time watching the practices, it seems like Kenny lets the assistants do a lot of the coaching, maybe even most of it. Like, what do you believe is the value in that?
I think there's value for. I can't speak for Kenny, but just someone who's played under him. Now I work with him. Again, with him just being intentional, I think that he respects the people that he brings on. He understands, hey, I do what I do well, but I brought you on for what you do well. And so when it's your time, when it's your opportunity, do your job, do it well, have confidence in that. And so I love that he's able to, not only humble himself to take a step back, but also give confidence for other people to step in and coach and do what they do too.
You've only been here for a month, but have there been any sort of wow moments in practice just kind of watching?
There was a wow moment the other day. It was before we had this little break, and it was just like small little thing. It was like Coach Brooks. I think the girls were going up and down, and I think it was between like Toni and Millie, and he wanted them to do something. Like they did it well, but he kind of asked them to do it like a little differently. And it was like the last thing he said was like, "And you're gonna make the shot. Like Toni, you're gonna pass the ball this way. She's gonna be there. And she's gonna make the shot." Next play, they do it. She makes the pass how he wants it. She knocks it down. And the energy in the room where everybody was happy for each other. And it was a great execution. That's all you really want. But for the ball to actually go in the basket, that made everybody excited. So it was good. And in practice.
I've always enjoyed like when I'm in practice and I watch them make like 30 threes in a row. Or they'll have a drill where I want to say it's Claire Strack and Millie.
Mm-hmm.
They have a competition, and it's like who can make the most threes. They kind of go around the perimeter, and then they both just hit all 30 in a row. And you're like, well, I guess there's no winner because you're all just great shooters.
We love that. But hey, I love to be on the side of people that make shots. It's not always about taking them; it's about making them. And our girls, they make their shots, which I love.
And then I guess to kind of sort of start to wrap things up, do you have a good Kenny Brooks story for us, or a good Georgia Amore story for us? That you can tell without getting this copyright or taken down on the YouTube.
A good Georgia Amore story, I would just say it's just a little like people know this about Georgia, but I feel like my first experiences of Georgia when I came to Tech, we kind of knew of each other, but the light that y'all see her have like all around, like she's gonna give that like just first interaction. I remember like we'd go to like any food restaurant that was
Okay.
in Blacksburg, and we would try that, and like when people say like that girl has the aux cord and she's gonna play some good music, I would trust Georgia Amore to play music for the rest of my life. I think just because of like her broad what's it called, her
Broad music taste.
yeah,
Yeah.
her broad music taste. When it comes to a story about Coach Brooks, I always just say this is like truly what makes what I appreciate most about Coach Brooks. And now that I've grown up a little bit, I'm still young, but I appreciate this of him. Is like he is willing to have like this sit down, honest conversations with people. And I think the turning point to where like he knew that he could trust me more was it was like halfway through the season. I was playing all right, and he like pulled me over, and he was just like, it was probably one of the first times I really had like a coach look at me and be like, "What do you want? And what you want, we're gonna get you there, but you got to meet me halfway." We had what do you call it, a little coming to Jesus meeting. We had a talk. It's like, what do you want? I'm gonna get you there. And ever since then, it's been smooth sailing. I understand what he needs. He understands what I need to give him, and that honestly, like that for me, that's who Coach Brooks is. He's someone who's willing to meet you halfway, but he's not going to front. He needs you to do your part, but he's also always going to do his part too. And I think that's great in a head coach. You get what you give. When you have someone who gives a lot to you, you're going to give a lot back.
You know, to go back to Georgia, because I just thought about this. I think it was maybe before like the Liberty NCAA tournament game, someone was like, "Yeah, she listens to Fleetwood Mac before the
Heck
game."
yeah,
and
she
it's
do.
like all right, Fleetwood Mac. Like, what are some of the great like Georgia Amore game day music bumps that you just remember listening to?
I feel like anything, Georgia, if you're listening to this and I'm incorrect, I apologize. But I feel like anything, it could be Kesha, it could be Chris Brown for some dancing. It might be a little like punk rock. If it's good music, she will listen to it.
So it really is a broad music taste.
It really is just good music, great artists. And fun fact, like I have never met somebody who can like hear a song and like identify the song faster than Georgia Amore.
The team, because they've talked about it, they would go out and do like karaoke is like one of the things they do to get along. I feel like Georgia's probably the perfect karaoke partner.
Perfect. She makes a vibe, it brings the music. Yeah, it's crazy. Dang. Gotta ask her for some new music now.
Yeah, get it. So we gotta update the game day playlist, right?
Yeah, get some on.
Well, Taylor, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure having you. Thank you all for tuning in to episode 35 of the Memorial Memo. As always, subscribe to the KSR YouTube channel. We need more subscribers. Give us all the subscribers. I mean, if you want to see more content like this, this is the place to get it. Thank you all for tuning in. We will see you all next time.